वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षुधारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षुधारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु क्षुधारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः।
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, KYG. Thank you for joining into this satsang, for this satsang. As always, Maya and I are deeply honored and privileged to be able to host it. Thank you for inviting us into your homes, opening your hearts, so that we could all meet in this virtual space and explore these higher dimensions of consciousness. Sri Chakra is one of the greatest, the most intricate, and the most profound drawings, if you will, mystical drawings that explains to us the extent of divinity that exists within us. So without much ado, let us get on to where we were. In the last 3 classes, we were in this first 3 avarnas, not 3 classes. In the last few classes, we have covered the first 3 avarnas. What does that mean? It means this part of the Sri Chakra, the first one, the first avarna being the 4 gates, the square as you will, the shape of the square, which was covered by the 4 gates, which had 3 walls, like a fortress. And each of those gates had deities and energies. We explored that for each of those 3 walls. And then we came across this girdle, the first circle, if you will, which had the 16 petals, where we explored all the sense of touch and sense of taste and all of that beautiful things. And then we came across the 8 petals, where we explored the concept of infinity. And now you see a big gaping hole, if you will, inside of those 8 petals. A new set of shapes are going to be revealed to us. From the squares to the circles and petals, we are now going into a new shape. This is a very important phase of transition, from the first to the second and third, from the third to the fourth, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and finally the ninth. They all are in one particular shape, the shape of a triangle. Sri Chakra marks the ascension of consciousness within us. And triangle by itself, as we started off in the very first couple of classes, we talked about different shapes that we come across in the Sri Chakra, and we kind of roughly touched upon, or broadly touched upon, the significance of each shape. And when we came to triangle, we said that triangle is primarily aerodynamic in shape. If you see, when you drive on the road, you see turn here, turn there, go straight. All of these are arrows, right? And the arrow is nothing but a triangle. So triangle gives you a sense of direction. Triangle signifies movement in that particular direction. It's very precise because of its tip at the very end. And so it is a very important shape that is going to influence our thinking as we begin to meditate on this aspect of Sri Chakra. So let us explore a little more about this in today's class before we even begin to studying the triangles and what is the next Avarna, the next gate, the 4th gate. So here is the picture in front of you of all of the 9 gates, the Sri Chakra in all her glory. We refer to her as the feminine, as the Shakti principle, because this is a manifestation of Shakti. Right in the very center is a small red dot. That red dot represents the union of Shiva and Shakti, where everything goes back into the atom, if you will, or into the bindu. So you see here how we have the squares out in the outermost corner, and then you have the circle within which there are petals, flowers around. Petals indicate circular energy. The circles themselves indicate circular energy. So there is circular energy. And then we come to the triangles. So after the first 3 gates, when you enter the 4th gate, it is very significant because it marks a step up in our ascension. It marks a speed. It marks a focused energy that is required of you and me. So here, there is very little rather, I shouldn't say no, but it's very little scope for philosophy and theory here. In these triangles, once you enter that, and I'm talking of it as in the puja, as in the meditation, as we begin to understand, because this is a journey within, right? So take it at this moment that you are entering this journey inside, and once you enter the dimension of triangles, then it is experience after experience after experience after experience. The mind literally stops thinking. The heart opens, the emotions open up wide, and you're simply intuitively, directly beginning to connect to the source. That is the beauty of triangles by themselves. But the power in this Sri Chakra, if you notice, there is no arrow pointing in only one direction. They seem to be in all directions, and they are intricately involved. So it is not easy for us, and we can never, ever try to logically analyze and understand and say, aha, I got the Sri Chakra. Not at the level of the mind. But nevertheless, the mind is powerful enough to glimpse at the trailer, glimpse at a fraction of what this could mean. And that's good enough, because that helps open up the intellect, the intuitive faculty, the buddhi. That will open the heart, and we begin to experience these. So let us take a closer look at these triangles, because now that we are in this dimension, there is something very important I want to point out before we get lost into each of these triangles, and because we have another few more avarnas to cover, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let us take a closer look at these triangles. Here is a close-up shot of the triangles. How beautiful they are. Even though they are triangular, the way they are placed seems to have a circular effect, seems to have a very hypnotic effect, drawing your mind deep into these triangles, into the maze, if you will, of energies that ride and surround the levels of Maya, the levels of Shaktis that surround the core principle of who you are. You are not different from Shiva. You are not different from Shakti. In Sri Chakra worship, the end of that worship, the epitome, I guess I can say epitome of that worship is the experience of oneness. That's what it is all about. Oneness with the Shiva consciousness. Shiva Shakti Aikyam. That is the aim of Sri Vidya worship. If we have not got closer to her in decades of worship, then we haven't really progressed in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our words, in our actions, in our experience. So it is not how many pujas that we have done, I keep repeating this again and again, or how many times we do this puja, how many years we have done this. It is, have I experienced and gone closer into these dimensions? Have I experienced the divine principle of oneness? Have I got even closer to those innermost triangles? It is absolutely possible. There is no doubt about it. But it requires, it's not easy. I wish it was, it isn't easy. It requires tremendous sadhana. And by sadhana, it is just that one-pointed, focused attention, a lifestyle where all our thoughts, all our actions, all our deeds don't begin to conflict with these energies, but begin to surrender to these energies. And then you begin to recognize these energies in every aspect of your life. You have to recognize how these energies begin to play through you, how they become alive in you. And then Sri Chakra becomes alive in us. We have to begin to recognize that as we enter the triangular phase of this meditation, contemplation, or ritual, or japa. It is a mix of all of that. It is not simply a chant with mystical powers and Bijakshara mantras. It is not simply a picture that you can look at and meditate. Nor is it simply a theory where you can define what each word means and begin to understand or visualize. It is a mix of all of that. Japa, dhyana, dharana, And as you begin to get all of that together in a very related form, Patanjali, there is a reference to this in Yoga Sutras also. Patanjali called this samyama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. There is a combination of that, samyama he calls it. When this yantra begins to become alive, the energy in it begins to become alive. The mantras that we chant in order to activate each of these and to understand each of these energies, those mantras begin to get activated. In other words, we know that energy, I can feel that energy speaking through me or talking to me or in me at many times in the day. Then the Sri Chakra comes in all her glory. Then I begin to respect my body as a Sri Chakra. I may have made many mistakes in the past. It really doesn't matter. Past is all gone. Everything gets wiped off. That's what it means when all past karmas are wiped off. When Sri Chakra the consciousness of Sri Chakra begins to awaken, then all the past gets wiped off. There is no past because you are now identifying yourself, or let me talk from my point of view, that way it makes sense to you as well. So Sundar will stop identifying himself with Sundar and what Sundar did when he was 20 and 30 and 40 and 50. Sundar will cease to exist. The I in Sundar will begin to identify with the Shiva and Shakti within. Thus making life a very, very beautiful journey, a very magical journey. So in this, before we go into the outermost triangles and start going in, I want to draw your attention to one part of these triangles. Many of you are probably aware of it if you're already students of Sri Vidya and Sri Chakra, so bear with me. I'm drawing two lines here on the slides, and in between, I want to draw your attention in between these two parallel lines. And no, we are not talking of infinity and those math that we just spoke about in the last couple of classes. No. This is simply, I wanted to draw you, because there's so many triangles, I wanted to draw your attention without removing the other triangles. I just wanted to draw your attention under the linear fashion. From the top big triangle all the way straight down to the bottom triangle. In the middle is the red dot with the triangle facing down. As a side note, we haven't come to that part, but as a side note, for those of you who have a Sri Chakra, the Sri Chakra should be placed in such a way that the innermost triangle faces you and you are facing east. I am facing east, the innermost triangle faces me. That is how ideally it is set. We'll come to that when we bring all of this into a regular practice, in a ritualistic practice. But it's just a side note. So I am sitting with the yantra like this, though of course you're seeing it like this right now, but like this, with the innermost triangle facing me. Now, is that the only triangle facing downwards? In other words, the tip of the triangle is facing down. You'll see there is one more below that. And then there is a third triangle. There is the fourth triangle. And then there is a really big one on the outside of those two lines. So you have 5 triangles that are facing downwards. Right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 triangles facing downwards. After studying of all of these triangles, this is what we are going to learn. So I might as well put it out there to show you what is the scope of this fantastic thing and how and why is it that I'm saying all of this applies to us in our everyday life. What are these 5 triangles that are facing downwards? These 5 triangles are picked up from each of those avarnas, right? So from the outermost avarna, the innermost avarna. These 5 triangles are called the Shakti Triangles. Shakti Triangles. And we'll come to that in a few minutes. I want to draw your attention to the triangles facing upwards. So above the red dot, since the triangle in which the red dot is placed is facing down, so that triangle we cannot take into consideration because that is part of the 5 Shakti chakras that are facing down, chakras or triangles facing down. The triangles facing up, look at that. There is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fourth being the largest triangle outside of the red line, sitting on top of the red line, facing up. These 4 triangles facing in the other directions is called the Shiva triangle. Shiva triangle. So you have 5 Shakti triangles, 4 Shiva triangles. And all of these 43 other triangles that we will study, the number of triangles in the Sri Chakra is 43, excluding the one in the middle. Some consider that as a bindu, some consider that also as a triangle. But when we come to that, we'll talk about it. The 43 triangles, all of them are products, are manifestations of this combination of 5 Shakti triangles and 4 Shiva triangles. And not only these triangles, but then they begin to manifest as the petals, the 8 petals, the 16 petals, the entire fort, and thus we have this body and everything that goes along, the whole creation, right? So what are these 5 Shaktis and 4 Shivas? Why couldn't have been 4 Shivas and 5, or 5 Shivas and 4 Shaktis? Why Shakti is facing downwards? Why Shiva should be facing upwards? So, in Yantra worship, in the concept of Tantra, rituals, where mysticism and symbolism is very key, a triangle facing downwards signifies feminine energy. It signifies the yoni, the creative principle, the vagina, which has the birth canal, which brings birth to not only just child, but to everything. So that in the cosmic scheme of things as well, the triangle facing downwards is considered Shakti energy. So what are the 5 things that come out of this cosmic Shakti? That is why women are praised, women are worshipped, and women are considered the highest, because not only just women in human beings, but the female among all species are considered directly connected to the Shakti principle. However, let's consider here. We have 5 fundamental elements that bring out creation. For those of you who are in the Kaivalya Marga class, you probably are very aware of it. Now, we haven't completed the 5 elements, but you're probably aware of it. That's what we talk about in the Kaivalya Marga class. You see the link now. Why they are not the Kaivalya, that what we talk in Kaivalya Marga class is not different from what we talk here or what we practice in yoga. It's all connected together. So the 5 elements, the element of sound that manifests as space, right from the innermost core. Everything begins in vibration, right? Nada yoga is the highest form of yoga. So the fundamental sound. This is not musical sound. It is simply it's a fundamental vibration that is represented through a sound called Om. That fundamental vibration at the very core of creation that emanates from the Shiva Shakti principle, that sound manifests eventually as space. Shabda becomes Akasha. Shabda is sound. Shabda is vibration. Shabda becomes Akasha. Innermost triangle. So you see triangle facing down, creation. So the Shiva Shakti gives birth. The Shakti that emerges from that union, she first gives birth to the sound energy. Shabda comes out. And then space is formed. It's no coincidence that when a child is born, the first thing the child expresses life is by crying. Right? Sound is so vital, so important. So Shabda becomes Akasha in the first triangle. Then comes Sparsha. Sparsha is touch, is an energy. Touch is an energy. Don't ask who touches and what. We associate touch with our body and hands and fingers. That is one way to express the power of touch, just like mouth and ears are a way to express sound as an energy. So just like sound is an energy, there is a fundamental energy in the universe called Sparsha, which is born out of the Shiva Shakti principle. In Sankhya, there is a way to explain that as well, from the gunas and so on. So we'll, at some point, when we have time, we will link all of these together. They are not in conflict at all. Nevertheless, so from the fundamental 5 elements called the Pancha Tanmatras, that is why Devi in her hands, she holds these 5 elements. In the statue of Devi, she holds all these 5 elements in her right hand. We saw it in the last class. So the second triangle is Sparsha, touch. And from that touch manifests air. Touch and air, Vayu, gases, all of this is a manifestation of the sense of touch. Not just sense of touch, the energy of touch. They are all fundamental energies we are talking about in this, Shakti energies. They all manifest themselves as touch. So, Sabda manifests as Akasha, Sparsha begins to manifest as touch in our experience. Shabda Sparsha Rupa. Then comes Rupa. Rupa is form. Form is an energy, just like triangle is a form. Petal is a form. Circle is a form. The shape of your house is an energy, which is what Vastu Sastra, the Feng Shui and all of that is based on, the energy that is emitted from shapes and forms. Correct? We are all influenced very deeply by what we see, the shape and the forms that we see. We define what is beauty, okay, or ugliness, or lack of beauty, or what is geometrical and what is asymmetrical, and what lacks symmetry, and so on. All of that is by its sense of sight. There is that energy of form. The energy of form, Rupa, which is also an energy, expresses itself through our sight. So we say sight is connected to Rupa. That is the third, again, that is manifesting, creative energy, fundamental energy. That's why it is an arrow facing down. So this is the cosmos, the cosmic consciousness of Shiva Shakti giving birth to these fundamental elements. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, taste. Taste is a fundamental energy. It is very difficult for us to think of Sparsha, touch and form and taste without a body, but they exist as fundamental energies in creation. And therefore, when we actually control these senses, we are actually tuning in and harnessing the energies of the universe, and therefore we get siddhis and understanding of all of this. That's why sadhana and discipline are so very important. Okay. So, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. Rasa is taste. Taste is a fundamental energy that manifests from that supreme consciousness. And taste is experienced through us as tongue. Taste is experienced through water. So you have space, air. Rupa expresses itself through sight and through fire. So you have space, air or gases, fire, electromagnetism, electricity, all of that comes there. Then taste is water, and water comes to us in our form as blood, urine, and all of that. So you have all of this. And finally, sense of smell. Gandha. Gandha is also tanmatra. That means it exists on its own. And Gandha manifests itself as matter. So if science is searching for the source or the cause of matter, which is atom or quark or anything that they're going into quantum and they're going into consciousness, there is still an element they have to discover, and they will at some point, I'm sure. As and when they discover that these are fundamental elements in the universe that we know of, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha, smell manifests as the first element of matter, and that matter eventually, everything that you see as objects is a manifestation of the sense of smell. So these 5 elements of creation, which covers everything that you and I experience right now, is the Shakti element. She creates this. From Shiva, as she emerges, she creates this. It's creation, it's an action. Shiva, on the other hand, the 4 triangles that are facing up on the other hand, Shiva is pure consciousness. He just meditates, he's aware, awareness. A better way to say it, awareness. What kind of awareness? 4 types of awareness he represents, or it comes from him. From him, an awareness that comes at the subtlest state, the innermost triangle there, is the transcendental state, the Turiya Avastha. Then you have deep sleep state, Sushupti, where mind doesn't exist, senses don't exist. We can even get there through meditation, but very difficult because it's very close to falling asleep. Nevertheless, you and I can understand that easily as deep sleep. We may not understand the 4th state, but we can definitely relate to the 3rd state. It's a state of awareness. Yes, for practical purposes, we say, I was not aware of anything. But you were aware that you slept, right? When you got up, you were aware that you were slept. So that is also recorded in the consciousness. It's an action that's taking place. It's an awareness that exists, which is recognized after the fact. Like when you record music in a tape recorder, or when you're clapping in a rhythm to a song, when the palms strike each other, there is sound. But the gap between sounds also plays a role in creating that sound. Right? The gap between, so I go, Om Shri Matre Namaha. So the gap between 2 claps is silence. You can't say it is of no use. It is important because that the gap determines the rhythm. The rhythm determines the energy that is generated. So the silence is as important as the sound of the clap. See how beautiful that is. And therefore, deep sleep is an important state of awareness. Even though the mind doesn't exist, the senses don't exist, you and I will say, I was knocked out, I had no idea. And you know in deep sleep, you don't exist, but you do. So who exists in deep sleep? If we know that, then we'll know who exists in Turiya Avastha, the transcendental state. Nevertheless, you have the transcendental state, the deep sleep state, the dream state. Then there is that state where you are neither awake nor fast asleep, going back and forth. Medical science calls it the REM state, REM. Where time and space and all these other elements begin to play with you. And then comes the awakened state, the big triangle facing up, the gross one. So this is an inherent energy of the Sri Chakra. We are not going to look at that top triangle and that is not going to be connected to, not directly connected to awakened state. There's not going, that triangle does not represent that. It's another energy. But the idea of 4 triangles up and 5 triangles down is an inherent energy, and the combination that comes from that, and with all the other triangles in play, the combination that happens is you and me. That's why we are very complex. Creation in general is very, very complex. You cannot take one aspect of creation and say, let me fix that. That is why I keep saying, even in yoga, as simple as, oh, I have a back problem, what to do? But that back problem, if you are to achieve, you have to approach it in a completely holistic manner. The source could have been thought, source is stress, source is ignorance. Finally, that lack of connection with the Shiva Shakti, everything stems from there. Lack of understanding these energies in our bodies, lack of ability to respect these energies, the lack of ability to awaken these energies and utilize these energies, and all these energies waiting to serve you, we don't use them. We abuse them. And thus, we create disharmony. I don't know if that's the right word. discord, if you will, a discord in us. And that represents, and that comes out in many, many forms, illnesses and diseases being one of them. But that is the whole idea here. So you and I are going to be entering this beautiful Sri Chakra, a very powerful phase of the Sri Chakra. And we have to enter with this consciousness that each of these triangles signifies, like I said, aerodynamic. It signifies a speed. So there's an element of energy much more powerful than the petal energy, than the square energy. There is an energy that is, at least this is my experience. I hope I'm not influencing your thoughts, but I'm just opening up your mind. The triangular energies are far sharper, far directional oriented, and they truly begin to cause awakening when you begin to meditate on each of these energies. So the essence of Sri Chakra is Shiva and Shakti. How is Shiva and Shakti represented? This is some simple thing, like I'm just summarizing this. Essence of Sri Chakra is the aikyam or the oneness of Shiva and Shakti. That means end of duality. There is no other. There is only one. Shiva Shakti. And so from that oneness, you have the 4 states of consciousness. You have the 5 elements that comes out. All of that is represented in the Sri Chakra. And everything else is a product, an effect of this, but fundamental cause. So see how these 5 triangles going up, 5 triangles pointing downwards and the 4 pointing up could have been easily missed if you were just looking at all of this, because you're looking at triangles all over the place, going sideways, up, down, and all of that. You would have missed this. So this is how there are so many layers of secrets hidden inside Sri Chakra. And we are trying to understand it only from one dimension, but these are all indicative of many dimensions. And we'll come to that in a few seconds before we end this class, because I want you to take time to think about this beautiful aspect, because it will prepare you now to learn the other avarnas. So look at that. This is what we have done so far, right? This is how I started the class today. So we have the 3 avarnas, the square, the 2 circles, one with 16 petals, one with 8 petals. So we have all of this set. Now within that will come the 4th avarna. Now I'm not going to put all the triangles. We'll come to that slowly, right? You got an idea about that. So the 4th avarna is this. You saw that? There was an empty circle, emptiness in the circle, and now I'm filling it up with a set of triangles, which is the 4th gate. Set of triangles. This is what we are going to learn in the next few classes. The 4th Avarna. Welcome to the 4th gate. Again, I say it from my heart, from the depths of my belief. Even if when I prepare these slides, I do it with a lot of prayer, because we are dealing with our fundamental cosmic energies, which is very precious to us, which really talked about who we are. This is the path to self-enlightenment. Simple and clear. It cannot get more clear, more precise than this. Don't reduce it to a blind ritual, please. 14 triangles in this gate. 14 triangles. Let us go around, because right in the center is Bindu. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the direction you go. Just like you go around in a temple, you go clockwise. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Each of them, again, like with all the others, represent a particular energy. Some of them, as we go in, may seem to be the same one we covered, and if we do, I'll point out why is it being repeated and how we can understand that. But each of these triangles represent energies. Now, in my own state of awareness, if you will, or where I am right now, I do not believe that the size of these triangles matter. The size, because some triangles are smaller, some triangles are bigger. You might say, are bigger triangles more important? I think in the geometry of the whole scheme of things, some triangles happen to be bigger and some smaller. Now, you and I might think that the bigger triangles are somehow more important, but look at the innermost triangle is the smallest, and that is the core of everything. So don't worry about size, right? So don't get distracted at this point, but at the same time, if you want to think about it, use it for contemplation and see how your own intuition guides you. And if you make some peace with the idea of how come in this magnificent design, it's impossible to get the same size triangles for each avarnas, then you lose the geometry because it's all connected to the other when you draw it or when you create it. But anyway, that's something you can think about. I have spent considerable time thinking, and then I've come to a point where it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't bother me. But nevertheless, my antennas are still out there, willing to learn from the universe, or from any of you, if you have a deeper insight from the idea of these 14 triangles, some of them being big or small. And that big or small size, and the size changes as we get more into the other avarnas as well. So 14 triangles is important. But before we go anywhere, we talked about the triangle, Trikona Triangle. The Sanskrit word for triangle is Trikona. Trikona. Kona is angles, 3 angles. In English, strangely, is very close. It's triangle, 3 angles. 3 is a very symbolic number, and they coming together symbolizes, to me, the power to manifest. Triangles represent the power of manifestation, the power of being and the power of becoming. When the triangle is facing up, it is the power of being, Shiva. When the triangle is facing down, it is a power of becoming, Shakti. Being and becoming. But both are triangle energy. Triangle, there is nothing like up is better and downward is not better. This is all, just get out of that. These are just triangle energy. Triangles themselves represent. So every energy that we're going to study from now on inside this triangle are 3-dimensional in nature. It has 3 corners. We may not have time to go into each one in this respect. It will take months to finish each one. But I'm opening this idea for you to make a note and begin to meditate on it. That's why, if you remember me saying in the earlier classes, take one energy, one day, and meditate on that. So when we come to triangular energies, you will feel, oh my God, this energy is in a triangle. Why wasn't it in a petal? Why wasn't it in a circle? Why was it presented to us in a triangle? And the innermost energy is also represented in a triangle. So triangle is very powerful. Pyramids were not simply some culture who were not connected to what we are talking here. Thousands of years ago, there was a civilization where the world was not being really broken up into fragments of narrow domestic walls, as Tagore calls it, and as we see it today, there was a common body of knowledge that was freely exchanged, right? So the Greeks also knew the power of pyramids, which are triangular in shape. Triangle signifies sturdiness, steadiness. So, and because of the 3 angles, or there's an element of 3 here: past, present, future. If you think of time, if you think of space, there is there and here and here. In other words, between there and here, in the moment and at this point, there is a dot, right? In terms of qualities, there is the quality of sattva. In other words, in Sanskrit we call it guna. The qualities of Satwaguna, which is creative energy, where ideas, it's purely ideas. Rajoguna, where the ideas, where efforts are put in order to make that idea manifest. Action. There's an energy that sets that idea into motion. The sankalpa is set into motion. That energy that sets the sankalpa or the will that is set out into motion is Rajoguna, the energy of action. And then you have Tamoguna, the energy of fulfillment, where that sankalpa or the willpower that was set into action finds fulfillment and therefore comes to a rest. Tamoguna. So Brahma is the deity for one who gives birth to ideas. Creation comes from him. And then there is Vishnu who says, all right, I will help you manifest this. So he manifests these ideas to us. And then the fulfillment, he manifests in the sense he helps us bring it into fruition. And the actual fulfillment of that, the fruition of those ideas, finding fulfillment and finding a completion, and thus that idea which began here finds its end here. The idea finishes, right? If I have an idea to make a chair, that's an idea. Then I go buy wood from Home Depot or Lowe's, and I buy saw, and I buy all of this, I draw the paper, and all my effort is the Rajoguna. And then the chair is built. What happens to the idea? The idea has found its fulfillment in the chair. Therefore, the idea comes to an end. The idea dies and merges into the chair. And therefore, that is represented by Shiva, who sits in the graveyard. Because his energy is that which fulfills that which began in Satwaguna. So your Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, those are three powerful energies that form a triangle. Nada, Bindu, and Kala. Nada is sound. Kala is time, Bindu is the basis, the dot from which both these emerge. So they also become a triangle, three energies. So think about all the three energies that seem to have a very deep connection with our fundamental nature of who we are. Across religions, in the Bible, there's mention of Trinity. In Hinduism, there is the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. In Shakti principles, there's the three primordial deities again, as Parvati, as Saraswati, as Lakshmi. So like this, you have so many threes going on. So there is a power in the idea of threefold. Even in asana practice, Trikona practice, standing Trikonasanas and variations, Trikonasanas and all the konas, asanas are very powerful because they build a very strong foundation in opening up the hips, in beginning to loosen the energies that are caught up in the prison walls of our Mooladhara. It releases that. So think about that. And also see in the next couple of days as we continue to learn this, see how many triangles you come across. Not just in your computer screen, because there are many, many triangles that you will see with arrows pointing up and down right from your keyboards. But keep your eyes open, ears open, keep your antennas out there and look for triangles. Simply for the fun of it. And ask yourself, how can I incorporate triangles as energy sources in my body? Don't come and ask me. I don't know. You have to find out. You want to buy a pyramid? You can if you want to. All of those, don't go about buying and spending money on that. Just see how much of triangle energies are already there. In one of the rituals in Indian practices, right in the beginning you worship Ganesha, the elephant, and elephantine power of the mind. You awaken. With sandalwood, they make a big ball of paste, if you will, and then they will make it into a triangle. For those of you in South India, I'm talking of South Indian traditions, which are again very, very old. So they will place it in, that represents Ganesha. You don't need to buy a statue. They will represent that. So that again is a triangular energy set there. Like this, triangles. The Sri Chakra is represented as the Sri Yantra, which is the three-dimensional aspect of this drawing that you're seeing on the screen. Is just a simple drawing, right? A complex drawing. But that drawing is represented in that three-dimensional manner too, like a pyramid, it comes up. So with the bindu right on top and all the other, each one representing an avarana. So that is called the Sri Yantra. What you're seeing now on the screen is Sri Chakra. There is the Sri Yantra, which sits right on top like this. And so you have the three-dimensional part of it that's called the Sri Yantra. It's also called the Meru and so on. There are different names, but that's also kind of triangular in shape. So it's very fascinating how Sri Chakra, being one of the most powerful mystical diagrams or yantras, if you will, which represents cosmic energies within us, has so many triangles, a lot more triangles than any other shapes, including the innermost energies represented as being in the center of a triangle. So think about it. Open your hearts and minds to triangle and reverentially say, I'm entering into this dimension of triangular energy as I proceed in this path. Open your mind. This is how it's learned ideally, and I'm glad. I keep saying that I'm so honored to be able to do this because we take time to do this. So we take time now to pause here. Even if you're watching this again, even if you're doing a binge watching and going class after class, at this point, just take a moment, just take a day or two and then say, all right, let me focus on triangle energy. What does it mean to me? Let's simply meditate on a triangle, whatever it is. And then enter the study. Because then what we do is we open our intuition, we open an awareness to experience rather than simply logically trying to think too much. So it's good to take notes, it's good to memorize, but at the same time you have to say, all right, I want to now, in the world, let's see whether I come across triangles. In nature, where do I spot triangles, and so on. So we are entering this beautiful, powerful portal of the Fourth Avarna, and from the Fourth Avarna, it's just a combination of triangles. So may this divine Shakti, Devi Bhavani, as we call her, may she guide us in this path into ourselves. So we begin to let go of our limited idea of limitedness in us. Slowly begin to recognize that every thought that happens in us is her expression. And therefore we begin to respect it. And therefore the thoughts themselves become divine, the emotions become divine, and thus slowly our actions in turn become divine, and our body begins to reflect that inner divinity. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not an easy path. But it comes with prayer, steadfast devotion, and with satsangs like these. Let us now sing a simple bhajan and bring the satsang to an end with prayers. Thank you.
Om Shri Matre Namaha. 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 देवी भवानी माँ, साई भवानी माँ, देवी भवानी माँ, साई भवानी माँ। दया करो साई माँ, कृपा करो साई माँ, दया करो साई माँ, कृपा करो साई माँ। जय माँ, जय माँ, जय देवी भवानी माँ, जय माँ, जय माँ, जय देवी भवानी माँ, जय परति निवासिनी माँ, जय साई भवानी माँ, जय परति निवासिनी माँ, जय साई भवानी माँ, देवी भवानी माँ, साई भवानी माँ, देवी भवानी माँ, साई भवानी माँ। ओम श्री मात्रे नमः, 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 ओम श्री मात्रे नमः। समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु, समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु, समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. जय बोलो पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव। ओम शांति शांति शांति।